Hello, it's Dr. Cindy with this week's Mental Health Moment. We've been looking at ways to facilitate forgiveness in response to hurts that occur in our adult lives, as well as ones that happened with parents and others when we were growing up. The goal is to tend to the emotional pain of those experiences so we can expand our view to soften or balance out our perception of ourselves and others in our lives. Forgiveness is an inside job, as is all emotional healing. This might seem counterintuitive because when we feel hurt, we tend to look outside of ourselves to the person who committed the hurtful act and the things we think that person would have to do in order for us to forgive them. We might want an acknowledgement of the transgression, an apology for the hurt that was caused, and possibly some type of explanation for why the behavior occurred. Now, if those three elements are provided in a heartfelt, remorseful, non-defensive way, that can certainly help with forgiveness. But it is the internal emotional repair and processing that is crucial for true healing from the hurtful event. And in the absence of that, the situation will most likely continue to be held on to as a grievance against the other person. Also, efforts to seek resolution from the other person can backfire. Many people have trouble receiving feedback about their behavior and feel unfairly accused or even attacked when they're confronted about something that they've done. It takes a certain degree of emotional intelligence and psychological maturity to give an acknowledgement, an apology, and an explanation in a way that's not defensive. Even when that does occur, we discover that that's not enough to make the hurt go away. So we might look for more conversation and seek more answers in the hopes of that providing emotional resolution. And that can become really challenging for the person who engaged in the hurtful behavior. They feel like they've already atoned for their sin. So they might start feeling frustrated about the continued questioning that takes place, and at some point could become more defensive and less able to respond with openness and sincerity. This then could potentially create further tension, conflict, and animosity in that relationship and adds to the pain rather than helps it diminish. So when we look to the other person to help us forgive, the best case scenario is that we get a genuinely remorseful response that acknowledges the pain that was caused, but that will not make the pain go away because emotions don't respond to logic, reason, or explanations. And in the worst case scenario, the person who is hurtful reacts defensively and minimizes, dismisses, or possibly even denies altogether the pain that was caused. That obviously makes forgiveness even harder. I've spoken at length in my previous videos about our tendency to look outside of ourselves in all kinds of ways in order to try to feel better because we weren't taught how to actually take care of our own emotional needs. And think about what we typically learn about forgiveness as children. Your brother hits you. Your parent makes him apologize. He begrudgingly says a half-hearted, "I'm sorry." And then the incident is supposed to be over and done with. That doesn't really work so right when we're kids, and it still doesn't work very well for us as adults. There is no magic to an apology, even if it's the most wonderful apology imaginable. But because that's what we've been taught, that will be the solution our brain gives us, and it may not think the problem has been resolved until an apology has been received. And then, when the apology doesn't make it all better, our brain might keep pestering us for more conversation in order to fix the problem. So when people feel they need answers and explanations from a person who is hurtful, I always caution them that the conversation may not go the way they hope it will and could potentially lead to more rather than less hurt. No matter what the situation, if we place our own emotional well-being in the hands of someone else, that continues to give the other person power over our feelings and takes away our own power to heal the hurt that has taken place. When we recognize that nothing is required of the other person, that enables us to get free of the emotional pain and bring about true forgiveness and resolution for ourselves. So let's talk about what you can do when you've been hurt and you find yourself preoccupied with the idea of talking to the other person. Tending to the hurt can certainly help because as the pain is lessened, the problem is lessened as far as the brain is concerned. And remember that connecting to your heart helps to silence your mind. Once you feel more at peace with the situation, it might help to tell yourself, I'm all set, or it's over and done with, to let your brain know that the issue has been taken care of. But if your brain persists, there's another strategy that can help put an end to the ruminating, and that's to do some writing about the painful event. Think about when you're going to the grocery store and you have a few items you need to pick up. If you don't write those down, you will likely rehearse those over and over again in your head all the way to the store because you don't want to forget them. When you make a list, that frees your mind to do other things along the way. Listen to music, enjoy the scenery, think about what you're going to do next. Our brains keep important information in active memory so we don't forget it, which is what it does with things that are causing us emotional pain. When you write those down, it can literally get them off your mind, enabling your brain to release all of that because it knows you have paid attention and recorded the information. So, what might that look like? You may find relief by simply writing down the situation that took place and how you feel about it. Your brain will tell you what it considers to be important information. So see yourself as a secretary taking dictation and recording whatever comes to mind. Spelling, grammar, punctuation, penmanship, none of that matters. This is merely an opportunity to dump the information that your brain has been so persistently holding on to. You're giving your brain the chance to have its say and feel heard. I do recommend physically writing by hand versus typing in a phone or computer. There is something neurologically beneficial about the act of writing. Studies have shown that writing by hand more fully engages the brain and has a natural calming effect, which obviously would be helpful when you're dealing with emotionally charged material. Really try not to set any expectations or limits around the experience. Allow the words to flow as freely as you possibly can. You're not writing this for anyone but you. These words are for your eyes only, and you don't ever have to look at them or read them again if you choose not to. You can tear it up or burn the writing when you're done if that feels therapeutic to you. Now, sometimes people resist writing their challenging thoughts and feelings down because they say it somehow makes them seem more real. In actuality, all thought is real to the brain, so keeping it in your head just reinforces that. People also feel uncomfortable about what emotions might come to them if they take the time to sit down and focus on them so they can write them. This gets back to the importance of developing comfort with our own feelings. If we're afraid of our feelings, we are afraid of ourselves. There is nothing that will come out in writing that you don't already know, even if you're not consciously aware of it. And again, you don't ever need to read or keep what you write. The purpose of this isn't to document the painful experience for yourself so you have it for posterity. It's actually the exact opposite. It's to finally rid yourself of difficult thoughts and feelings that you may have been carrying around for years. It could also help to write a letter that's directed to the person you feel hurt by. This is not a letter you're going to send. It's an opportunity to express everything that you wish you could say now or had said at the time, and whatever you would want the other person to know about how that felt to you. I especially recommend this when the person is deceased or not in your life in some way, such that there's no opportunity to have a conversation with them. Again, try to let this flow as freely as possible. There's no need to be polite, kind, considerate, diplomatic, or fair. You don't need to censor yourself or to be concerned about the other person's feelings because this is just between you and your brain. It is a chance to feel that you've spoken your mind and had your say about the hurt without worry about repercussions of any kind. And you can destroy or otherwise dispose of the letter in whatever way feels right to you once you are done. By the way, please don't go out and buy a fancy journal for these exercises. When people buy pretty books, they feel like they have to have pretty words to put in them. This kind of writing isn't pretty. It can be ugly and raw and vulgar. So write on something you don't care to hang on to, so there's no reluctance to get rid of it after. You can also use writing as a healing strategy for regrets you have about yourself and about times you've been hurtful to others. It is just as important to forgive ourselves for things we feel badly about and the ways that we've been hurtful as it is to forgive other people. So you might choose to write an apology letter to someone you know you were hurtful toward, to say all the things that you wish you had said and that you wish they could know about how you feel about what happened. Again, this is not intended to actually be sent or shared with the other person. It's an opportunity for you to more fully process the experience and free your mind of this mental and emotional burden that you've been carrying. In all of these cases, please make sure you take the time to tend to any painful emotions that arise as you are doing the writing. Allow yourself to cry if you become tearful, and be sure to put your hand on your heart, connect with the feelings, and provide comfort and compassion. That really hurt. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, I know you're sad. I'm right here. Now, this can feel more challenging when it comes to feelings about your own hurtful behavior. It is natural to feel guilty, ashamed, embarrassed, or even angry at ourselves for the things that we regret saying and doing. These emotions aren't coming up to cause you more pain, but to enable you to truly heal them. You might say, "Oh, you feel so bad about what you did. I know how horrible you're feeling. I'm right here. I hear you. I know you're sorry. I forgive you." None of these exercises are meant to discourage you from having conversation with people in your life about situations in which you have felt hurt or been hurtful. It is an important part of healthy relationships to talk about interactions that have caused us pain or another person pain. This is particularly true if you have had a tendency to hold your feelings in and have not allowed yourself to voice your concerns in the past. But it is important to be reasonable in our expectations of those conversations and not base our own healing on how the other person responds. If you believe a person owes you an apology when you've been hurt, or forgiveness if you've hurt them, you may not get the outcome that you're looking for. Whether or not someone is genuinely apologetic and remorseful, or accepts our apology, or the conversation doesn't go as hoped, or we decide not to have a conversation at all, we always need to do the inner work in order to heal the emotional pain, truly forgive, and not hold a grievance against ourselves or others. There's another way that writing can be a useful tool for emotional healing. Since we've all developed a mindset about our value and worthiness based on our childhood experiences, it can be helpful to write out that template that we've been operating from in our interactions and experiences with others. This is essentially our life story, and how it unfolds now and in the future depends on how successfully we revise and rewrite the script that we've been following. When we resolve the painful emotions and inaccurate conclusions that made us feel unworthy, inadequate, unlovable, and ashamed, we can see ourselves and our experiences in a more positive and balanced way. And when we approach new situations free from that old narrative, we will more fully interact with others based on who we are and who they are. So take some time to reflect on what you've learned about yourself so far through the exercises from the earlier videos. Write down the ways that you tried to get approval as a child. Was it through good grades, excelling at sports, being helpful, staying out of trouble, supporting your parent, keeping quiet? How did it feel when you succeeded at that? What about when you didn't? How would you describe the role that you played? In doing this work, the goal isn't to change who you are, but to find who you are apart from the script and the confining role that you've been playing. The emotional and behavioral patterns we develop as children are truly survival strategies in the sense that they develop in order to try to ensure that we will be loved and taken care of. It is important to respect and appreciate those as being your best effort to manage within whatever the dynamics of your particular family system were. And it is equally important now to recognize that you don't need to continue to operate within the confines of your childhood view of the world. It can feel uncomfortable to think about changing how we see ourselves, even if we recognize how limiting and restrictive our mindset has been. Our ego is fiercely protective of our self identity because it is based on those ingrained survival mechanisms. Try to reassure yourself through the discomfort of this. You're not losing anything but old rules and definitions that don't apply. It can help to look at your childhood role as being something you've outgrown. It served you as best it could when you were growing up, but it just doesn't fit anymore. Another way to view it is that you're upgrading your operating system. The earlier versions are outdated and no longer work for you. As you examine and come to understand the patterns in the template you've created and superimposed over your life, consider what revisions you can make. Look at the words you've used to label yourself. If there are words that would feel hurtful and offensive if someone used them against you, or that you would never consider calling someone else that you love, then those words have no place in your vocabulary about yourself either. Those labels are insults that can cause more pain and keep you from completely valuing who you are. Try to connect through your heart to the child who felt that way about him or herself. Tell them, those words hurt so much. I'm so sorry. They aren't true. Let me take them from you. Also look at what chapters you have in your story. How might you rename the ones that represent pain? Instead of the worst year of my life, can it be called the year I learned how strong I am? Can your most embarrassing moment become a funny anecdote? Are there certain files of memories that you can rename? Can the traumatic experiences file now be called situations I have overcome? What painful experiences can you put closure to and bring to a better conclusion so that they don't continue to be reactivated as ongoing issues? The ending to some of those might simply be, I'm glad that's over, or thanks for getting through that. Sometimes one of the most helpful things we can tell ourselves about a challenging childhood memory is, I don't live there anymore. Eventually, through doing this work, you can go back in time to what you used to see as your story and view it more as a work of fiction than being the truth of who you really are. And your revised and rewritten narrative can more accurately reflect what is true for you and for everyone, that you are worthy and lovable. How great would it be to actually like the main character of your story? You might even start looking forward to the chapters ahead of you, knowing that you are in charge of what gets written and can create the happy endings that you deserve. Take care. I'll see you next week.